All right, people, I have officially returned from Toronto International Film Festival. We'll be going live tonight in order to recap everything that happened there. That would be me, myself, Nathaniel, Jack Uffer, aka Swerve Master, and Alex Kent, my Toronto co-visitors, I guess you would call it. But first, we have, Luke, some very important business. Season 3, there's finally things happening. Finally. It only took, I don't know, did it take more or less time or about the same time as last season for things to finally get going last season when we were covering season 2?
I think it's almost similar because last season that you had the first hatch encounter from like 3 different perspectives, and then we kind of had something similar happening here. If I recall, yeah, we had the Jin and Sun thing, we had the Locke waking up in the forest. It's just a lot of setup, but it feels like this was the climax of the first sort of story arc of the surgery arc, if you will. So a sort of 2-parter climax, which Lost is known for, but putting it in the first half of the season even better.
Yeah, it's interesting because up until this point, right, it's kind of been very deliberate because there's a lot more plot lines. It feels like there's to cover. You have stuff going on with the others. You have like the micro plots there. You have the Jack Juliet thing with Ben. You have the Kate and Sawyer thing. Then you have everything going on back on our main island as well. Locke trying to rally the troops together. You know, there were still a couple of little loose ancillary plot lines that they're still working on, a couple plot lines that need to be set up next week as well. So this was a jam-packed, action-packed episode. We also finally got an origin story to one of the new characters was introduced in this season, that being Juliet Burke, who up until this point, we kind of didn't really know. We knew that she was this, you know, kind of medical figure that was a member of the others that had this kind of contemptuous relationship with Ben. She seemed to be being used in order to manipulate Jack in order to try and get what the others wanted, but also she definitely had an agenda of her own. And all of those kind of initial plot lines come to fruition this time. We don't spend any time on our main island. We only spend time on the Hydra Island this week. And we also get Juliet's backstory. We find out kind of what it is that brought her to the island. Also, the other thing that I forgot about this episode, besides it being jam-packed and action-full, is that the amount of kind of not celebrity guest stars, but I guess like working TV stars in terms of like the rewatchables.
Oh yeah, I spotted at least 3, which is like a high number.
One in particular that I forgot because it's funny because like, so this is a little bit of a side tangent. So I famously finished all of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia this past year. And, you know, I was going through all of their kind of IMDb's in order to try and see like what they were in so I could like, you know, catch them. And famously, Rob McElhenney and Glenn Howard, and both that being Mac and Dennis, both co-starred in guest appeared in different seasons of Fargo. Glenn Howard is in season 1, and then Rob McElhenney, I refuse to call him Rob Mac, is in season 3. And then obviously, you know, they have their appearances. Glenn Howerton was getting some potential early Oscar buzz 2 years ago for his appearance in Blackberry, which I've been watching clips of that. And man, that guy's a fucking tank of an actor. Just, I always knew he was great on It's Always Sunny, but now I see him like, oh, It's Always Sunny he just does for fun. Like he's really that good. But I noticed that Rob McElhenney, in addition to guest starring in a quick 5-second cameo where he gets crossbow through his eye in the final season of Game of Thrones, the first episode was also in an episode of Lost. And I'm like, oh, 2006. That means that he's either back half of season 2 or the first half of season 3. And obviously, It's Always Sunny was still just getting going at this point. This is about season 2. And then I see that he's the stupid guard that Alex fools in this one. I'm like, that's perfect. That's perfect. Who else could have done this? It's absolutely perfect. And then you also have Robin Weigert, who's been in a million things, most famously portrays Calamity Jane as Juliet's sister in this. And then also Zeljko Ivanek, who is just the bald, creepy, weird-looking guy who's known for playing just scumbags all around. Except for, I think the only time he didn't was in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, where he's one of the cops that's like seen comforting Sam Rockwell after Woody Harrelson's death in that movie. But yeah, so celebrity guest stars galore.
And also the mayor in The Dark Knight.
Yes, well, that's the thing. I'm glad that you noticed Mr. Richard Alpert, the introduction of him. As you could probably figure out, he is not just a random passerby. He is famously one of the you could pretty obviously tell, since Ethan also comes back in this episode during Juliet's flashbacks, that Richard is a member of the others. And that is somebody that you are going to want to keep your eye out for, because Richard, while having sporadic appearances throughout, is let's say, another very, very important key, a very important clue as to the island's true power. if you will. This is not the last time that we see Richard. We will see him. We don't get his origin backstory until all the way at the end in season 6, but he is somebody to keep your eye out for. Yeah, Nestor Carbonell, the Mayor Garcia from The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises, famously a very, very entertaining cameo in Shogun that won him an Emmy. Also, I believe is still starring on the morning show, one of the only like side characters from the first season that's still around. But yeah, so that's it's funny. I think his name is Yanko in that show, which is pretty funny. So yeah, a lot of celebrity guest stars, a lot of stuff going on. So basically, the crux of this episode is Jack's about to do the surgery on Ben that was set up in the last couple of episodes, where they discovered that Ben has this. The whole reason why Ben set this whole thing up to bring Jack, Kate, and Sawyer over to this island and keep them held in captivity was because he has this malignant tumor that is growing on his spine that he thought was going to kill him. And then, what is it, however long ago that they've been on the island? How long have they been in there? Like 2 months, 3 months, something like that. Oceanic Flight 815 crashes and just happens to have a spinal surgeon on board. And once he discovers this, he's like, oh, it was intended. It is prophetic. And we almost get another hint as far as like who Ben's working for. Because like I said, there's always another boss. And so they're about to do the surgery. Jack obviously has been told by Juliet that she wants him to kill Ben on the operating table. Instead, what he does is he nicks an artery in order to try and basically force the other's hand in order to let Kate and Sawyer go. There's a lot of back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Kate and Sawyer manage to escape from their cage. They're on the run. They end up getting helped out by Alex, who's officially confirmed to be Ben's daughter in this. Daughter, I say, very heavy quotes. We already know who she really is, who her real parent is. Danny, of course, is still in the warpath, going after them. Alex, of course, is like, oh, I have a boat. I can help you guys get to the other island. But you need to help me rescue my boyfriend first. And then Sawyer's like, let me guess. His name is Carl. There's some very, very entertaining Sawyer one-liners here.
If there's nothing going good in the episode, you can rely that he's gonna blurt out some great nicknames. He's gonna blurt out some great one-liners. Like, oh, you fell for the old Wookiee prisoner gag. It's like, it's so perfect.
It's so
I love
perfect.
Sawyer.
Once again, showing Lindelof's love for Star Wars. I thought that was great. But like I said, as much action is happening here, and there is a lot of action that is happening here. Like there's 1 minute, like Kate and Sawyer are on the run. Jack is debating whether or not he's going to kill Ben on the operating table. Tom is just standing there being like, what the fuck do I even do? Danny's like, I'm going to kill Sawyer. I don't care what anybody says. And we're like, dude, he's not the one that killed your wife. Why are you such on the warpath for this guy? I mean, yeah, he's antagonistic, but not that antagonistic. And then in between all this kind of handling kind of the negotiation between all these parties is Juliet, who we finally learn her backstory here, which is basically where she was this medical researcher. I believe it was in California. And basically what happens is that she's basically stealing these experimental meds in order to try and experiment on her sister, who is sick and dying of cancer, because she's attempting to basically prove that anybody is capable of carrying a baby to full term as well. Like I said, not really just a setup here in this episode that does pay off in importance later on in this season as far as her reason for why she's being on the island. But of course, she is kind of being held up by her douchebag of an ex-husband, played by Zeljko Ivanek, when she is given kind of this interesting opportunity by one Mr. Richard Alpert, Nestor Carbonell, in order to try and come to Portland and essentially be given unlimited money and time in order to continue her research. And she turns it down basically because her ex-husband is being very controlling of her and essentially has her in a chokehold where he basically caught her sneaking into the facility and stealing some of the meds. What's it called? Well, while of course he was trying to, get with another girl, and basically puts her in a chokehold, being like, okay, I know what you're trying to do here. You're trying to basically impregnate your sister, which depending on how we carry this could either be seen as cutting edge science or breaking some very ethical quotes, and it's entirely on you. And so she's talking to Richard. And Richard's like, well, what would it take for you to come with us? And she's like, for my ex-husband to get hit by a bus. And then,
that's immediately okay,
behold,
he's gonna get hit by the bus.
Yep, and then it was so based on how long you've been watching the show, and based on how much familiarity you have now with the show and where it goes, were you expecting him to be immediately killed in the next scene, or were you like, was there a little bit of a shock?
Well, what I've learned is that Lost is extremely intentional in its dialogue, and this was like, okay, he's definitely gonna get hit by a bus. Like they're not very random. Like they say something, it's gonna happen, and this was perfect example of maybe I just watched too much stuff, and I've come to expect it, but it's still work. It's still kind of unexpected, but it was like, okay, yeah, there it is. there it is.
Well, I think the inherent humor of this comes from the fact that Juliet realized it. It's like one of the few instances where you have like a character realize in real time, oh my God, wait, did I do this? Where she said that as like a fleeting passing thing. Next thing you know, this guy gets killed by a bus. Now, while he's on the while he's on, the surgeon's operating table, or,
The morgue,
in the morgue, Richard and Ethan both come up and are like, yeah, we really, really, really want you to come with us. And she's like, I said that I was going to be hit by a bus. And of course, they're trying to play it off, being like, "Oh yeah, we have no idea what you're talking about." Like, I don't even remember you saying that. And we as the audience are all sitting there, because at this point we've been watching very dutifully. At this point, we're all sitting there being like, "Okay, come on, guy. Like, we know. Like, we all know at this point. We know that if some fuck shit is happening, like, we know that the others are behind it. We know that the others kind of have their reach and pull and have infiltrated into these different groups. We know that the others have a way of traveling to and from the island." So yeah, it's all of this like kind of interesting, like really funny, dramatic stuff. So like I said, I just realized I've been babbling this whole time. Like, what did you think of this episode in general? Because you usually send me your thoughts like on the episode after the fact, but I think this is the first one where you didn't do that.
I don't know, I think I just watched it late. I was like, oh, that was good. Because I usually watch it on the Friday, and then like right before we do the episode, I'll skim through it just to like refresh. Just to touch on the last bit there, my superhero wired brain is very much like, you become part of a bigger world, Mr. Stark. Like, we like to talk to you about the Avengers.
Oh, that's funny.
Thing,
I mean, listen, it's Lindelof.
Like, Lindelof went on to do
comics,
Watchmen.
So
he went on to do Watchmen.
Yeah.
Anyway, so. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was very worthy of the cliffhanger that was left off in the last episode, because like at this point it's like, yeah, this is a binge show made in the wrong era, sort of. But yeah, it all the setup paid off in this episode. That was a very action-packed episode.
Yes,
because
very action-packed.
Because in Attack on Titan, it's often like, okay, there's gonna be a talking episode. That means the next one's going to be all action all the time. And this one was kind of, we had the setup, and we began the surgery, and now we're going to have the full climax of that event. And like I said, it's the climax of this first story arc. So now Kate and Sawyer going to get back to that island. That's going to kick some things off. And now Jack's going to be alone with the others, and then Ben in the middle of all this, Ben wakes up, which is like even better.
Yeah.
Like I said, like they said, he's not an anesthesiologist. He's just a spinal surgeon.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That creates some questions. So
yeah, there's a lot of interesting questions. Especially, I love the banter back and forth when Tom's like, basically, "Oh, I'm Tom, by the way." Jack just gives him a look. It's like, is that really the most important thing right now? Yeah, it's a great in terms of sowing the tension, pun intended. It's really good in terms of giving us a really great kind of bottle action set piece, because. And the irony being that, like, even though Ben Linus, and it really shows again the power of Michael Emerson as an actor, is the fact that Ben Linus has proven to be a pretty despicable character up until this point. But like, we still are like, oh, is Jack really gonna let him die? Especially because like every time he opens his mouth and words come out, it's just like, it's so interesting. Where like everybody is kind of in the midst of like up in arms, like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? And then Ben is like, is that really the most important thing right now? As he's laying there with fucking the skin on his back open, his spine exposed. I'm like, this shouldn't even be possible with the amount of anesthesia that was applied to him. But essentially, kind of the crux of this comes down to, in the middle of all of this, when Sawyer and Kate are on the run, Ben requests to talk to Juliet alone. And afterwards, Juliet tells Jack, yeah, you're gonna finish the surgery. And Jack's like, what the hell? You told me to kill him. And Juliet's like, things are different now. I'm going to help your friends escape, and you're going to finish the surgery. And so basically, Alex this whole time has been helping Kate and Sawyer. They managed to rescue Carl from dumbass Mac. They managed to get to their boat. Danny's about to get
and he was in like some kind of clockwork orange torture room. Like, I was like, oh, that's unpleasant. But then it said Jacob on the screen.
Yes,
like,
it did. I told you that name, Jacob. Look out for it, because that's gonna be important going out. So, like I said, they rescue Carl. They managed to get him to the boat. What's it called? Danny is about to get the drop on them when all of a sudden Juliet comes in, shoots and kills Danny. Bye-bye, Danny. Honestly, I don't think the world and the island is going to miss him that much. The island will not be bringing him back. And Juliet's like, okay, like, Jack made the deal. He's going to stay, and you guys are going to go. Kate gets on the walkie-talkie, tells Jack the story that he first told her when when they first landed all those seasons ago. And basically Jack is like, I need you to make me a promise. You're going to go with Sawyer and you're never going to come back for me. And Sawyer is just listening to that whole conversation between Jack and Kate that whole time with that look. It's like, oh, the love triangle.
I'm like, oh, he
going.
knows. He knows who she really wants.
And Sawyer thought that he had finally nailed her, after their, after they were, caught in the net.
Caught in the net. Yeah.
Yep, is his very favorite euphemism that he loves to use. So, but of course, Juliet's like, Alex, you're staying. It's like, you can let Carl go, but you know that your dad's not going to let you go anywhere without him. So that and Alex just has this look on her face of, it's like, fuck, so close to paradise with my boyfriend. And so then basically it ends. Jack does the surgery. He fixes Ben up. Ben's like on the operating table, kind of healing and surviving. And then after the fact, Jack is sitting there talking with Juliet, and he tells Juliet, is like, what did Ben say to you that made you change his mind about letting him live? And essentially, she tells him, okay, I've been on the island for this amount of time. What's it called? What is it, like 2 years?
3 years.
3 years, 2 months, and something amount of days. And she's like, and basically Ben said that if I let him live, I would get to go home. Now, do I believe that for a second? And also having seen the whole season? Absolutely not. Not for a second. But it does raise some interesting queries as far as continuing the relationship between Juliet and Ben. Because what's interesting, too, is the fact that Juliet has this contemptuous relationship with Ben. And Ben was not the one that recruited her. It was Ethan and Richard, too, who, again, Richard, we have not seen so far in this kind of community of others that we've come to know. The Ethans, the Toms, the Goodwins, the Dannys, the Paulas, the Colleens, all of the others that we've gotten to know kind of at this point. Richard has not been one of them. So that's also kind of an interesting query, what have you, if you will. So, where he is at that point, that's going to be quite interesting. But this is kind of, it was a great action set piece. It was a nice resolution to kind of these first couple episodes to build up. And now it really feels like things are going to keep going. Like I said, we were pretty much entirely on Hydra Island this episode. The next episode, I believe we're pretty much entirely on the mainland episode, because that's Desmond's episode. And then the following episode after that is when things start to like kind of merge between our island and then the Hydra Island as far as continuing with the others. Because even though they say to Juliet and Sawyer, even though they say to Kate and Sawyer, they're like, oh, you can never come back here. It's like, we obviously know they're going to go back there. We know they're not going to let Jack stay there. We know that they're going to come back and rescue him, but it's just a matter of how and what the circumstances will be as far as how they're going to get Jack back. So that it's not an endpoint. It's more so just kind of another continuation.
Yeah, and I think just to mention that scene where Juliet does go and talk to Ben, again, like I said, Lost is very intentional, because we've been following Juliet's flashback this whole time. So we'd think, okay, we're going to go in her perspective. But no, we stick with Jack, and he's behind the glass. He doesn't hear anything. So again, that's like, okay, they clearly don't want us to hear that conversation yet. So we'll see what that really is all about. So
yeah,
again,
definitely.
Like you said, the first story arc is over. And now we'll see what happens next.
Yes, like I said, the conflict with the others has taken another step. It is really interesting, again, I will say. As much as I've dogged on these first couple of episodes, there's been some really good ones in there. Cost of Living, I really liked. The Locke episode, Further Instructions. The Sawyer episode ended up being better than I thought. It really was just those first two episodes that were kind of just like stagnating and like setting us up. But like, again, I really, have to give props to Lindelof Morgan. Even though we criticized it, how much he takes his time with the setup and certainly the flashbacks this season, it really never ceases to amaze me how he is able to set everything up so well. In terms of, how he is able to set everything up so well in terms of getting us into kind of the action and then really escalating it. And it really, uses the episode count I think for this season in particular, very, very well, because the problem with last season, I really did like last season, but the problem with last season is we spent so much time in that stupid hatch. And it really, after a certain point, it's like, okay, like where are we going with this? But here it's like every couple of episodes, there's like a new shift. And then it kind of settles into like the new normal up until the finale. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see what my thoughts are, what your thoughts are going to be on this season once we wrap it at the end of this year in comparison to the first two seasons. I think season one is still my favorite just because in terms of first seasons and setting us up for kind of the structure that we were going to follow and all that, there really is nothing like it, truly. So Yeah, like I said, Lost. It's a special show. So, like I said, that's our recap today. Not in Portland. Next week, we're back with Flashes Before Your Eyes. Like I said, tune in tonight as well for mine, Nathaniel, Jack, and Alex's recap of Toronto International Film Festival 50. All the movies that we saw, all the experiences that we had, all the celebrities that we had. It's going to be a fun time, honestly. You guys are not going to want to miss this. It's going to be a lot more of a casual episode. And, what's it called? And then also, like I said, we're going to be doing some more movie reviews as well. Dustin and I are going to be going live in 2 weeks to do back-to-back review for One Battle After Another, as well as our Sean Penn Hall of Fame. And then we may be doing him next week, depending on how much time we have. We will get back to you guys about that. But like I said, we're in for a very, if there's one thing that Toronto told me, it's that we are in for a very, very interesting fall movie season. And I didn't realize this going in, but 2025 is officially a repeat of 2019. Because the thing about 2019 that everybody forgets is that it was an amazing movie year for the last 4 months of the year. But those first 8 months outside of Avengers Endgame and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood were a struggle, to say the least. August started to pick up a little bit, and then September through December was straight bangers, and that's exactly what we're in for this year as well. So make sure you guys tune in to our recap of Toronto International Film Festival 50, or as they coined at the festival, TIFTY this year. You guys are not going to want to miss that. And Luke, my faithful Talking Lost co-host, thank you again for being there with me every step of the way. Where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
They can follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube. I'm trying to revive it once again. Like every few months, I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the time I'm gonna revive it. So hopefully I can do that this year because like you said, if the fall delivers, then the top 10 will be shaken up. If I'll be able to see any of them, that's the bigger question.
I'm telling you right now, just based off of what I saw at TIFF, the fall is going to deliver for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. And you guys can, of course, follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talking TV Podcast across all platforms. And as always, people, get lost. We'll see you guys next week.